Homeschool How To. I'm Cheryl, and I left the life of classrooms and cubicles for home educating in the countryside. But I have no idea how to homeschool, so I interview the people who do. Join me on my quest to learn all the ways there is to homeschool. Welcome, and with us today, I have Laura Bains. Laura, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It's my very first podcast.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm a
Awesome. And
rookie.
yeah, well, when you were homeschooling, they probably didn't have podcasts, huh?
They did not. They did not. It was a fly by the seat of your pants kind of deal. We didn't really even have internet, really. Like that's how far back we were going. It was like you ordered curriculum on the phone, and I don't remember even how we found it, but yeah, that's what you did. Yeah.
All right. So how many kids do you have and how old are they now?
Okay, so I have two kids, two adults now. They are 26 and just turned 23. So I have my oldest is a girl and my youngest is a boy. And and they're both out working now full time.
So did you always homeschool them or were they in school first?
So the moment I heard the word homeschooling, I knew I wanted to do it. I'd never heard the word before. It was like a 2x4 straight out of heaven. It was like a stop in your tracks. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, I don't know what that is, but I got to do this. And then my daughter went to school for junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten. And let me just see. I went kicking and screaming. I did not want her there. And my husband, who is a first generation immigrant, came to Canada for the education system. So it was a little bit of a struggle, let me tell you, to convince him to take them out. And he's like, no, they're fine. They're fine. And so that was a little bit of a challenge. So my daughter came out 3 weeks into grade 1.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you from Canada? Because I interviewed a woman, Chloe, a couple weeks ago about game schooling, and she called it junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten. She was from Canada and I hadn't heard that before because
What do you call it?
Preschool and kindergarten.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we have preschool here. So that's kind of like a toddler-ish program. And then you go to like junior kindergarten is when you're 4. Senior kindergarten is when you are 5. And then grade 1 is when you're 6.
Okay. That's interesting. And I wonder if we're headed to that direction because when I was going to kindergarten, it was a half a day and I'll be 41 tomorrow. So it was only half day. And now you have kids in kindergarten full day. I remember when my sister's youngest son was in school and he's 18 now, it became mandatory that you have to go for a full day. Because I think they had a time where you could be full day or half day, whatever the parent wanted. But now, like you said, then there's the year before that in Canada, the junior kindergarten, or we call it preschool, but we have 2 years of preschool because my son was 4 in a preschool program, but there were 3-year-olds in it as well. So it was a 3-4 program. So you could do it for 2 years. But what a lot of people did was send their 3-year-old. And then when they were 4, they went to the school where you're actually in the elementary school for the full day, taking a bus, doing all the real school things, which is just crazy to me. So where did your husband come from originally?
So he's from Punjab, so he's East Indian, and they came over to Canada when he was 4. So he came over right in junior kindergarten and didn't speak a word of English, and had the Jehovah Witnesses actually taught them how to read and speak English, which is really funny to me. And and then by the time he was in grade 1, he had an incredible vocabulary. So he had skipped grade 2 because he came right at that time when language is really rich. Like his brain was just so receptive to all things language. So he was way, way, way far ahead of his classmates for sure. By the time he went to school, he was so far ahead of his classmates because he was just in such a rich environment.
With the Jehovah Witnesses?
Yeah, the Jehovah Witnesses, literally the case, because they were quite happy to come in, and they would just read them Bible stories 3 or 4 times a week. So they had free tutoring 3 or 4 times a week from the Jehovah Witnesses, and so that's how they. And they're Sikhs, just to let you know, my in-laws are Sikhs, But they were like, "Yep, come on in." And yeah, so that's how he learned how to. That's where they learned how to speak English, and that's where they learned how to read.
Wow. So it's funny because he has this connotation about the school system being so wonderful, but really he didn't learn that in the school system. He
He did
learned
not.
that
He
privately.
he did not. He didn't learn it in the school system at all, which is really funny. But his brothers and sisters, they were all in school by the time that they got here. It was a whole thing, the way they came over to India in three, or came over from India in three, like three tours basically. There was like some came and then some came and then the rest of them came. And so, but he was the only one that came in while he was still not supposed to be in school. So that's how he learned how to English, was all about the Jehovah's Witnesses were there for weeks on end teaching them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Funny story.
Yeah. So, I mean, eventually you got him to agree to homeschool, to let you homeschool the kids. And
Well, yeah,
no,
no, well, you know what? So you know what did, as I'm a naturally born teacher. I'm just naturally gifted that way. And so the whole year before grade one, was doing unit studies with my kids for fun. Like we were like have an ocean day, and I remember we had like streamers hanging from the ceiling, and we would have like fish food, and we had ladybug days and all that. And without thinking twice about what we were doing, like it wasn't intentional. It was just like, oh, you want to learn about fish this week? Let's do that. And then, of course, by the time we got into grade one, I realized that we had done all of the science from grade one just for fun. And so, yeah, so what it really was that they had an open house at the school, but the teacher was sick, and so she just opened up her classroom, and you could just walk through. I mean, I don't think that would happen these days, but you could just walk through the classroom, and there was a whole pile of things that we kind of went, hmm, hmm, really? Hmm. And I think it was sort of after that I said to him, I've done all the school. I've done everything. She was reading at a grade six. She was reading Black Beauty before she went into grade one. So yeah, so she was an early reader. And so, of
I'd
course
say
on the,
so. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
yeah. And so in grade one, of course we went on there, they had a capital A and a lowercase a, and we're thinking, are you kidding me? Like, this is not going to go well. So I just said to my husband, like, let me just try it for this year. Like, let's give it a shot for a year. She's already done all the science. She's clearly reading, no problem. So yeah, so that's what happened was we said it was going to be a year by year decision, but it was kicking and screaming. He didn't really want them to come out, but I was really feeling very convicted about it. So I did.
Wow. Okay, so at that time your daughter was first grade and how old was your son, or he wasn't in school yet?
He wasn't in school yet. He was three. Just I think, yeah, he was three when we started. So he would have still been in that preschool age, but the preschool actually kicked him out because he wouldn't stop crying. So he wasn't even allowed to be in preschool. So he was home with me all the time anyway. So he was already home with me anyway. So it made sense.
Okay, so you said that you kind of had to order curriculum by phone back then. Did Abeka even, were they a thing?
Yep. So that's what we used Abeka for math and language. The math program we loved, Abeka Math. My husband's an engineer. He's an electrical engineer, and so math is a thing in our house for sure. And so yeah, so we did Abeka Math, and my kids loved it. And they were just recalling, they're like, the time trials were the best. Remember when we could do all that math and they timed us to see how good they were? So my kids loved. We did about 2.5 hours of math a day. They loved math. Well, they loved it. It was like, can we do more? Can we do more? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, of course. So we did tons and tons of math. And then we did Abeka language for 1 year, but that was just not our thing. So we switched off of Abeka after the first year. It was way too complex for me. I didn't understand it. So I was like, I don't know how they're going to do it. So,
Well, I
um,
think that makes people feel like, oh, good. All right. Math comes because most of us are not doing 2.5 hours of math every day. I don't know. I don't think I do that a week with my six
well,
year old.
but my kids loved it. Like literally they were,
Right.
like I think they loved the fact that there was like little pictures on there, but they just, and I never checked their work. Like they had, I mean, I ordered what do you call them, the answer books, and so they would do a page and check their answers. And so I wasn't even I would look at it maybe once a week and go, okay, we're good. And then so they were doing all of it. They were doing the teaching themselves because they could both read. They were doing the teaching themselves and the correcting themselves. So I would just kind of flip through and go, yeah, you're right. It's good. Let's keep going.
But then it's good to hear that, then you tried the Abeka for the language and that just wasn't a good fit. So I think that's good for people to know that just because you have one brand doesn't mean it's going to be across the board. Everything
No,
works for you. And there's nothing
no.
wrong with you if it doesn't work for you. You can seek other things. And I love what you were saying about the unit studies because as I've delved into talking to more homeschoolers and trying unit studies myself, those are my favorite because I do get bored with okay, what's today's lesson? And let's do some practice on some, but I love the unit studies and how you can kind of blend in your language arts and your science and all got a lot of the subjects right into that one topic that you're discussing. Like we had done some for the fall. So it was learning about the moon and looking at some poetry about the moon and listening to a song. And, you're doing a science project with holding a clementine and a flashlight, clementine on the pencil and a flashlight and moving around a dark pantry. But yeah, I love the unit study aspect. I have not hung streamers from my ceiling yet or eaten fish food, but I mean, you're bringing up great ideas, and which is why you created curriculum, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But how did it go? How long did you homeschool them? Did they go through for the whole ride?
No, okay, so what happened was the sad part is when I pulled my kids out of school, my neighbor stopped talking to me. So the neighborhood kids would not talk to my kids anymore. I don't know what happened. It was heartbreaking. So we ultimately moved out of that house. I know I can't even.
Because of that?
Yeah, they were like, nope, there was some perception that my kids were better than theirs or whatever. It was devastating for our family, for sure. Like,
Word.
because all of a sudden they had no kids and they had no friends anymore because nobody would talk to us anymore. It was the strangest thing I could even imagine. And then so we ultimately moved out to the country, which it was funny because when I just asked my daughter, I said, "What do you guys remember about homeschooling?" Like, I really didn't know. They're old, and so anyway, but they both remembered the environment. They both remembered like the country property we lived on. They both remembered like it was interesting. They remembered that far more than any of their lessons. So yeah, so we moved out to the country and then so we were home for 5 years. And they both wanted to go back. So they were both like looking for more than what I could give them anymore because now we were in the country, we were driving all the time to wherever we needed to go. And so, yeah, so they went back in grade 6 and grade 3. But the interesting thing was, as at home, I had skipped them each a grade. So when they went back to grade 6 and grade 3, they had already done grade 6 and grade 3. But the grade 6 and grade 3 that in the school was completely different than what we had done at home. There was nothing the same. All the language was different. All the books were different. The writing was different. It was really weird. So yeah, they went back in grade 6 and grade 3, which you guys don't have down here, but we have something up here called EQAO. EQAO is standardized testing, and the kids do it in grade 3, grade 6, grade 9, and grade 10. And so let me tell you how excited the principal was when I bring in my grade 3 and grade 6 homeschooled students. She was thinking, whoa, our scores are going to go through the roof with these kids. It was really funny, actually. She was so excited that they were coming in the EQAO years to do these tests for them. So that was funny.
So did they do better than the other kids?
Oh, they were off the charts. So it's okay. So here's the thing. I'm just going to tell you about the homeschool world. I remember thinking, we were in a co-op, and the people around me were lifers. They were homeschool lifers for sure. I knew my kids were going to go back to school someday. Like I just knew that. And but the other people around us, we were lifers. So these were people who were doing things like, they were like horseback riding at international levels. They played 6 instruments. They talked 4 languages. They traveled the world. These were people who were like homeschoolers extreme. And so I look at my kids and I was like, well, we didn't even bother with geography because I was like, my goal for homeschooling was literally, let's do language. I need you to be able to read. I need you to be able to write, and I need you to be able to do math. The rest of it you can figure out on your own. I really don't care about any of the rest of it. You'll figure it out.
I
You're
love
smart,
that.
you'll figure it out. So that was literally my goal, was like, okay, math and language and writing. And then so when we went back, I didn't really think my kids were that smart. I mean, they didn't play any instruments. They could do math and they could read and they could write. That's what they could do. And they got back into school and they were like killing it. They were like teaching their teachers how to do stuff. It was crazy. So my son in grade 3, he's an electrical guy. He was building circuits at home. He was building software programs at home. He knew from the time he was 4 he was going to be an electrical engineer. He just knew that. And so when he got into school, of course, there was no issues with reading, no issues with math, and no issues with writing. So he was bored, like bored silly. And so they had him, and they realized he was really good with technology. So he was the school technology guy for the whole time he was there. They were like, something's broken, call Clark, he can do it. It was like literally. And okay, so here's the funny thing is then when he went to high school, they still called him. They're like, Clark, can you come back and fix this? So they were calling, his teachers would be like, can you find this thing on the internet for me? Like, it was crazy. So, yeah, so neither one of them struggled academically at all. But this was in the time, here's my little thing. This was in the time when, the schools were focusing more on character development.
Hmm.
So my kids would have like won every single award in the school, every single academic award in the school, and some of the character ones too. And they in the graduations there was no mention of academics at all, which I
Wow.
thought was telling, because I thought my kids were going to school for academics, but that wasn't the case.
Right.
There was no
And
mention of academics at the graduation at all.
and so this was their high school graduation. So this would have been maybe 5, 10 years ago.
So this was at their grade 8 when they went from grade
Okay.
8 to grade 9.
So
There was
maybe
no
15 years
mention.
ago.
Yep, no mention of academics.
That's interesting. I bet you most people didn't even notice that, but
But we
you're
did because
think,
well, we did because they would have won them all. So,
yeah, yeah. Oh,
and
wow.
yeah.
That
So
is
there you
interesting.
go.
So then did they continue on with high school?
Yep. So they both were in high school, and so my daughter was the only one in her high school year that was on the like medaled in the honor roll all 4 years. She won gold twice, silver once, and bronze once. So we have 4 years of high school here, and so she medaled all 4 years. She came in second in her graduating year. So she was always book smart. She was always, she's like, oh, I have a math test today. Whoops, I forgot to study. Let me get 110% on it. One of those ones, right? Yeah, one of those. And she went on to go do math as her degree. Like she has a math degree. My son wasn't as smart as that. Like he didn't get the marks like that, but he was taking grade 12 classes when he was in grade 9, all the computer ones and the science ones. He was taking all of those ones because he just liked it. I mean, he was self-taught.
And that, it's amazing because just those years, like, do you think that would have happened to them had you never homeschooled them?
No, 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 not at all, because we schooled from 9 o'clock in the morning on the dot until 1 on the dot. And then we always had lunch at 1. And then, so they had the afternoon to do whatever they wanted. And so he literally decided when he was 4, he was going to be an engineer. And so we bought him snap circuits. Do you know snap circuits? Do you know this?
No, I
Have you
mean,
heard this? Okay. So snap
not
circuits are like
particularly that. No.
Oh, so snap circuits are like Lego, and then but they attach by and you can run circuits in them. You can actually make lights go and sirens go, and that's all battery things, and it's all by battery, and so you actually can build circuits to make things happen. And so he was building circuits when he was 4 and 5 years old. And then at 8, when he was 8, he decided he wasn't going to be a hardware, he was going to be a software engineer. And so then he just started teaching himself code. And because he never struggled in school, there was never problems with homework, he had tons and tons of time to just teach himself that. But they'd already learned how to teach themselves stuff because I never taught them any math. Like I never taught them math, they just taught themselves math. Um, So they had so he was self-taught for sure. I do not think I don't think he would have been as far ahead as he was had he not had that kind of. It was interesting because it wasn't really a good. I didn't teach them anything. It was him. Like it was him. He did it.
But you gave them the time and
Yes.
ability to, one, know that they can teach themselves things once they learned how to read, and two, the boredom of the afternoons to give them the time to learn what interests them, which is
Right.
what I'm seeing a lot of, that we are being denied as humans because we're just told where to be at all hours of the day. And if we're not told where to be, if it's like our downtime in the evening, it's getting ready for the next day when we're told where to be. So you don't have that time to really find what interests you.
And
So
you need to be
that's
bored.
huge.
You need to be bored in order for you to find out what makes you tick. Like you can't do that while you're bombarded with all of the information about where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and it's funny because if there's one thing that, anybody says when you say, "Oh, how was school today?" You always say boring. So it's like you are bored all day, but you're sitting there at a desk with nothing interesting around you. So it's not the right kind of boredom because you don't have the freedom to find something that interests you. So
Yeah.
it's they're different bored.
Yeah.
They're different
They're
ways to be
different
bored.
boredom. Yes.
All right, that's so cool. So then, all right, so once your kids went back into school, did you notice any sort of difference? Like, I know they must have been a little bit bored in class. Did they ever talk about wanting to be homeschooled again, or were they happy that they were there?
They were happy they were there. It was funny. We all decided at 5 years we'd had enough. Like we all were like, we've done what we needed to do. We got it. And so no, they never wanted to come out. But don't forget, they were kind of hand chosen at school, or I'm trying to think what that expression is, but they were sort of hand picked at school. I had one that was doing all the technology, and the other one, my daughter was the older one. She was teaching everybody how to do stuff. Like she was so if they ever needed help in the kindergarten room or whatever they were doing, that's who they were pulling out of class. They were pulling her out of class because she wasn't missing anything at all.
Yeah. So they really found like what interests them and their passions through being needed there.
Yeah, and they were chosen. I mean, I don't think every kid had that experience. I had the same experience growing up, but I like chosen out of the classroom to do some of these special things, which does make a difference for how you see yourself. And the other thing too is when my daughter was in school, so she went in grade 6. She was 5'11" when she went into grade 6. So she stood out like a sore thumb. She was extremely tall. She was a head taller than anybody else in the school. And she's 6'3" now. So she's 6'3" and my son's 6'5". So it like their size made a difference for sure. Yeah, their size made a difference. But yeah, they were just chosen to do their thing. So they didn't rue school at all. They quite liked it because it was just fun. They got to do all the fun stuff. Yeah.
All right. So then once they graduated and they went on to, to college and to do their careers, you found yourself in the teaching realm again. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I did. So when they went back to school, I went back to teachers college so that we all started school on the same day. So I went to teachers college, which was kind of neat. You kind of come home at night and you're like, well, who did you have lunch with? Well, who did you have lunch with? Well, who did you have lunch with? It was all three of us. And so, yeah, I went to teachers college and then was in the classroom to do my practicums and hated it. Hated the classroom. It was like there wasn't enough time to teach. And so I ended up trying to figure out how I was going to teach without having a classroom, which is not the easiest thing to do. But, where there's a will, there's a way. And ended up sort of doing a variety of things. I ended up tutoring, though, really, using a lot of the homeschool ideas that, because I knew that it was effective, right? I already had seen it in my own kids. So yeah, so I ended up tutoring math for one, because math is easy to teach. And for me, it was anyway, it makes complete sense. And then, so parents then started to say to me, well, if you can do that with math, can you do it with language? And I was like, well, I don't know, language is a whole different ball game. It requires way more parts of the brain. Let me think about that. So anyway, I thought about it for about a year and thought, wow, how would I do that? And then I kind of came up with a game plan and I was full before I could even put the word out there. They were like, Laura's going to do language. So the word got out, and I was 6 kids a day. I had 6 kids a day to be doing that, and then the lockdowns hit. And what I had done before was when I had the 6 kids, I would have three in at a time. So it was kind of like a little homeschool, but mom wasn't the teacher. So and in order to be into that program, you had to be 3 grade levels behind. That was my cutoff. And so anyway, so we were
Okay,
doing
so these
something.
were kids in school.
These were kids in school, and their parents were get this one. Their parents were pulling them out of school for 2.5 hours a day, 3 times a week to come and see me. Yep, to come and see me. Just because they knew what I could do, they'd seen it in my own kids. Teachers were recommending me, and then which is funny to me that teachers recommend me. But anyway, then the lockdowns hit, and I had to not do that anymore, and had to go one-on-one virtual. And then so then as the kids started to come back into my office, I realized there was a gap of 5, 6 years now with some of these kids from expectation to what they were capable of. It was driving me crazy. Like I had a grade 5 student who came to me who couldn't read. He could read the word the, and that was it. Like he couldn't read anything at grade 5.
Grade 5. And how
Grade
old are you
five,
then? You're about
10,
10?
10. Couldn't read a thing. He was a farm kid. They lacked good internet during the lockdown, so they did no school at all during the lockdowns. And they were farming. They had cows. They needed to do stuff. I don't know. I'm not a
So he
farmer.
knew how to do some things. He just didn't know how to read.
Yes, but as soon as you go back into school and people realize that there's a gap, now you're targeted as for bullying, right? And so this kid, he stopped going to school. He was so much anxiety that he was no longer going to school anymore. So when his parents found me and said, and then I worked as a tutor full time, that they could bring him at noon, I was be like, okay. So yeah, so I had a pile of kids like this that all in grade 5 and grade 6 that couldn't read a thing. And so this is where it kind of came. I needed a resource that was it gave them a better sort of diet of food than dog on a log and cat on a mat, because by the time you're in grade 5, I had to start with Matt and Sam. Like I had to start with Matt and Sam, but I couldn't keep him on that forever because we needed to make some progress. And so I ended up writing some books for him. And then I was surprised. I actually was shocked at how well they worked, and what not only how well they worked, but how he was feeling when he was reading them. He's like, "Wow, look at these big words I can read." I go, "Yes." When you have the right resource in front of you for where you are, then it works. And so actually, I just pulled this one out. This is the one that I wrote for him. I wrote AR. I wrote the AR book, and AR
Mm.
says R. And this is all about Clark the shark, and Scarlet the lark, and they're stuck on an ark. And so, yeah, so it's a book just with lots and lots of these AR words in it, like about half the words on every page have the AR word in it. And then so he was able to decode it, and he was able to figure it out. So he was not stuck on Matt and on Matt and Sam. Like he just wasn't stuck there. And the reason I took this is because this was in his name. So the AR was straight from his name. So he already knew that AR said R from his name. So I was able to just pull that out and go from there. So anyway, so I wrote these books for him, and then they worked.
How many
And they
books did
worked.
you write for him?
Well, in total, I ended up writing 41 books. So I have 41 different books. So all the different letter patterns, like AW, AU, EW, like tons of, like all the different letter patterns, all the R controlled vowels, all the W controlled vowels, the vowel teams, all those. So there's 41 of them. And the cool thing about this, though, the cool thing I just got to show you, the cool thing about this is that on this page, I don't know if your viewers can see this or not, but on this page, it says I can read these words right at the top. And what I did was, for any word that doesn't sound out completely, I sounded it out for them. So play is, I had a lowercase p and a lowercase l and then a capital A, so that they recognize that play. So anytime I used a capital letter on this page, it actually said the letter name. So as
Mm-hmm.
the kids are reading, look at this. So let me just find a good page on this one. So on this page, you can see, if you can see it or not,
Mm-hmm.
there's 2 words that are underlined there. So everything on that page either has the AR word on it, or it sounds out, or or if it doesn't sound out, like the word make doesn't sound out, but so I have the word make on the front page, and they can actually flip there and figure out that that's the word make. Because for a kid like this, I I can't teach them all the vowel teams. I can't teach them all of the things at once. We just needed to focus for somebody in grade 5. We just needed like high level, high concentration to just do one at a time and not have to worry about all the rest of them. So that's
Yeah.
how I did it. So yeah, so I ended up writing this curriculum, and of course, I have my homeschool experience in there because I have like all these cool ideas. What's this one? So this one, it's called Amuse at Home. I'm trying to think. Oh, Amuse at Home has, so on this book, they all have different books, but on this one, so Clark the Shark and Scarlet the Lark end up playing cards at dark on the Ark in this book. And so what I did was in the back of it, I actually taught you how to play a card game. And this was one of the favorite card games I used when we were homeschooling. And it's a math game. So it's for basic numeracy. And I just gave you the rules in there on how to play that. So,
Oh, that's
which I
cool.
thought was kind of fun. So that would be like, that's that sort of post 1 o'clock time when, like, what are we going to do now that all the sort of the formal stuff is done? Well, let's learn how to play cards or, things like that. So there's all sorts of like, I have like spelling activities in there and games and puzzles and, oh, I don't know, recipes. There's 41 different activities, like outing ideas. And then there's this other part in it too. So this is like the teacher in me that went to teachers college. So this one, it just says research shark behavior and their habits. And then also name
Yeah.
all the months in order because of course this happens in March. And so all these ideas about how to like extend your learning, like as a homeschooler, I would have
Yeah.
loved this to be like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that today. Or, one of them has like an idea for a puppet show. One of them has ideas for like sewing something, whatever. So whatever it is, there's something related to all of them in there. So yeah, can I just show you this? This is what it looks like.
Sure.
This is the book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's 600 pages of learning. And I wrote, this is the cool thing. This is this one. So the cool thing is, I don't know if you can see that, there's 2 copies of every book in there. There's actually 82 of these books in there.
Okay.
So if you have multiple children at home, which you probably do if you're homeschooling, then you have lots of chances to use the books. So
And where can people find that? I can put a link in the show's description, but
yeah, so that's so it's called Amuse in Phonics. So it's www.amuseinphonics.ca, spelled exactly how you would expect it, AMUSEINPHONICS.ca. So there.
okay, yeah, we'll put a link to that. That's awesome. I'm going through that process now with my son who's 6, trying to learn to, he is not reading Black Beauty on his own. Yeah, we have been working on phonics for, geez, I think 2 years now, at least a year and a half now, starting out with the Haggerty phonics, which is like used in the schools and kindergarten. But it's just so dry. But I'm like, okay, we have to do this stuff. And I would force him through it. And then it was like, okay, let's take a break. And then we did the All About Reading pre-reading, and that was fine. And he liked it. And then this year I was like, oh, let's try the Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. But they don't, like after the first 20, they're not easy lessons anymore.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're probably easy for your kids. They are not easy for him.
You know what?
So
I don't even remember teaching my kids how to read. Do you know that, honestly? I
really,
think we did it from spelling. Like, I think we did it from spelling. We would do a craft, and then I would say, well, let's write down whatever it was we just did. And this is what I remember. And I would say, okay, so we just did a butterfly. So what's the first sound in butterfly? B. What letter is that? B. And then I would see the ah. And so I think that's how I don't even remember teaching them how to read.
well,
Honestly,
and
I don't.
the funny part about that is my son makes lists all the time, and I'm always going, okay, well, and my husband too. All right, well, what sound is it? Well, what's next? What's next? And finally, I'm just like, it's UTTER. Why did it?
Yes, while you're doing that, you have to tell them why you have to have 2 T's in the word butter so the E doesn't change the U, right? So you actually have,
Okay.
right? You have to explain
Yeah.
that. That's why butter has to have 2 T's in it so that the E is too far away from the U to change it,
Okay. Well, see,
right?
I didn't get to that part yet in the
Oh,
courses. So maybe I do need to get your book so that it
so
explains
yes.
why.
Well, the interesting. So part of the thing that I had to figure out was, um, for these students that were coming in, we didn't have time to do the sequenced. We didn't have time to do all the sequenced stuff. Like, and we just didn't have time to do it. And their parents expected far more progress than what we were. We needed progress every single day, and so I didn't want a sequenced program. I wanted them to feel like, look at what I can do. Because as soon as they get to look at what I can do, then their whole mindset has changed to be like, wow, I can read. Yes, you can actually. It's not really rocket science. It's not rocket science to teach somebody to read as long as you can start to figure out and decode. And actually, I'm just going to tell you something. When we were using these books with him, I had originally told his parents it was going to take probably 2 to 2.5 years of tutoring to try and get him like up to speed. And he was reading in about, I tried to kick him out of the program after 5 months because he was reading in 5 months he was reading, and they kept him in for another like 6 months just because it was just a nice little safety net for them. But he was reading novels. He was reading novels after about after about 5 months. He was reading novels. I thought, you don't really need to be here. You've got enough of a base to figure them out. And I have such a waiting list that I don't like to keep kids in too long because it becomes sort of like this security,
Yeah.
like you've got the information now, just go be awesome. And so I tried to get him out of the program. It didn't really work. And then so they stayed in for about another 6 months or so. And
I
yeah.
I was, as you were saying with the you and the reason for the two T's, it made me think of a post that I had on Instagram recently. This was from a comic. I'll see if I can play it in the microphone here. But it makes so much sense. What's up? HOEM, home. No, home is HOE. Yes, dog. And I think we
Listen,
don't realize it till we're teaching our
I
kids.
know, right? Some of those we can explain. I can explain the sum away for sure, but some of those we can explain. But yeah, I know it's fun. That's actually called the scribal O, just to let you know. That's called the scribal O in the sum, and it's from when they used to do cursive. So here's the thing: when they used to
This
do
is
cursive,
some SOME.
SOME. So yeah, so when they used to do cursive, it would look so that it was a U and then an M, and it just kind of looked like a whole bunch of just loops. And so what they did was they just closed off they put kind of a cap on top of the O so that it separated it from the M. So that's why the O, when it's next to an N, an M, or a V, often sounds like a U. Like
Oh,
think of
that's so
love. It's
interesting.
Yeah, it's called the scribal O. So like love, money, glove. Yeah, it's called the scribal O.
They never taught me that in school.
I
What
know.
about num, NUMB?
I don't know.
Okay.
The B. I mean, who knows what the B's for? I didn't go into a big thing about morphology and all that. The B is silent. There must be a reason for it to be there, like in thumb and comb. I don't know. But so there are, but there is some, there's a lots of words that work with that scribal O theory.
Okay. Well, at least, there might be a reason somewhere, and it's not that they're just trying to make us go nuts. And it's the same in Canada as it is in America.
Except for we have a U in a lots of our words, like color. We have a U in that, right?
Yes.
So
Okay.
our color is COLOUR, which makes it really fun for reading because then it should be colour.
Right.
So when you're trying to teach it, so actually I like the American stuff better for that one. It's easier to teach it all.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else, Laura, that you wanted to make sure we touched upon while we have you here today? Like I said, I'll make sure to share the link to your phonics book in the show's description so people can check that out.
You know what I want to say? I want to say to the moms out there, I want to say to the moms that homeschooling is not just about your kids. I want moms to know that there's something in there for them too. And so while you're homeschooling your children, you are also learning. You're learning something, you're probably relearning. Like I know for me, when I had to teach history, I was terrified about teaching history and then realized with the right resource, it was way more fun than what I remember from grade 9. But while I want to speak to the moms really because I kind of found my raison d'etre through homeschooling. Like I knew that I was going to be a teacher somehow, some way, and I literally tutor full time now. I have like 12 students a day or something like that. Um, so I really want moms to be encouraged in this because it seems like it's all about the kids all the time. I mean, it's very busy that way. You have your kids with you 24/7. But really, there's something in there for a mom to sort of glean out of that. And find a new part of their personality they may have never seen before, and a new part of their identity, and whether it's a new hobby, whether it's a new realization about themselves, whether it's a new way to perceive themselves, whether it's how they fit into that community. There's really, and how they're going to stand up to some of the naysayers. That's a big one. Um, just to have the confidence to know that they're doing the right thing by their children, and to really stand up to some of those people. Often it's parents, spouses, neighbors. It's all of that you have to fight against, and you're going against the grain many, many, many times. I really want the women to find the strength in that, because we do know that it's mostly women doing the homeschooling, and find the strength in that to really just be themselves and just come out of this 1,000 times stronger than when they went into it. Way more confident, willing to take up the space that is they deserve to take up on this planet. Just like own their space, own their identity, own all of that. And because the kids are going to leave, the kids will leave home one day. They'll be off doing their thing because you've groomed them to have interests and personality and all of those things. And at the end of the day, they're still a human being. They're still a mom. They're still a woman there that, you know, they've got their thing going on. They've got it going on. They've worked all that through. And so I just really want to speak to the women out there and just really encourage them that this is not just about the children. Find yourself in there too.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And yeah, you're so right. And I think like because I was working, in a cubicle for 16 years, and it was like we had talked about in the beginning of the episode, someone always telling you where to be. And it wasn't until I started homeschooling that I was like, wow, I'm learning about the Silk Road. I don't ever remember learning about it in school, and if I did, it was presented in the most boring way, or I just didn't care, or a little bit of both. But it's like when you're at that age now where it, makes sense, and then your kids can see you light up about learning it, it really is something special. And then to find time to, whether it's learning how to cook or grow food, have a garden, or read books that you never thought you'd read that make you think ways that you never thought you would. You're so right. And I love that you ended on that note. Thank you so much, Laura, for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. What a joy and what a pleasure this has been. What an experience. I feel like I've hit the jackpot today. It's just been such a
Oh,
neat experience to be able to kind of revisit and relive probably the very best 5 years of my life was homeschooling. So I say that all the
yeah.
time.
And look at the solid foundation that it built with your kids in just those 5 years,
Hmm.
but it carried on for the lifetime.
Yeah, it really is, and it's really cool to watch them. I don't know what your audience is, but it's really cool to watch them as adults sort of figure that out. I mean, did I do it perfectly? No. No, did I make mistakes? Of course I made mistakes. But to watch them sort of be so confident in who they are now and have the full assurance that they are just walking in the road they're supposed to be walking on, that to me is really a treasure as somebody who's finished this journey many, many years ago. So yeah, it's really awesome to see that.
Well, thank you for paving the way for us too,
Thank you
making
very much. It's
making
been
way for the homeschoolers.
all
All right,
right.
Laura, thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye bye.